Why give up your time for a podcast about abortion? It seems every man and his dog's releasing a new podcast these days. If you're anything like me, there are only one or two you can really keep up with. So why give your time to this one? Every day in the United Kingdom, some 550 babies are deliberately killed. 1 in 3 women has at least one abortion in her lifetime. A quarter of all the babies in our nation have their lives ended through abortion, and yet no one is really talking about this. I want to suggest to you that there are 3 reasons in particular this is worth your time. And first, it's the scale. I've touched on that already. The scale of this humanitarian crisis is impossible to overstate. Around the world, it's estimated some 1 million babies are killed every week. It blows every other human rights and justice out of the water in terms of the scale. Secondly, the severity or the seriousness. There are other things I could mention to you which are very common. That's not to say they're as significant, but what we're talking about here is the intentional taking of innocent human life. What could be more innocent than a human baby? And what could be more of a sign of a society that is deeply unwell than children's parents, their own parents, handing them over to death? The seriousness, the severity of this issue, again, is impossible to overstate. And yet, there's this deafening silence. That's the third reason I want to give to you why this is worth your time, because where else are you going to hear about abortion? No one's talking about abortion. This is happening every day in our nation, but you never hear about it. Even in the church, you never hear really teaching or awareness being raised on abortion. And first and foremost, this podcast is going to be a podcast for Christians. It's a plea from a Christian to Christians to think about, to get our thinking straight on this issue, because we're not hearing about it, we're not thinking it through biblically. Now, those who aren't Christians maybe listening to this, just want to urge you, don't switch off here and now, because I've just said this is primarily for Christians. It is. But I trust that this is going to be helpful and interesting for anyone who wants to take a look at this issue seriously. We're going to be looking at the stats, we're going to be looking at the facts of abortion, the history, we're going to be looking at different worldviews and philosophies, the debates around abortion. We're going to be hearing stories, people who've actually had abortions, even people who've survived abortions. And we're going to have all sorts of guests come onto the show. So I trust that wherever you're coming from, wherever you're at the moment, this is going to be stimulating, it's going to be informative. And apart from anything else, you're going to hear here on this show, and perhaps more than anywhere else, you're going to hear a calm and reasoned discussion on this issue. There's a lot of heat and not much light out there. On the rare occasions this issue is addressed. But here we're going to talk about it calmly, and we're going to help each other think through this issue from all the different sides. So I want to warmly invite anyone to listen in on this, but primarily this is for Christians. Now, you might think that's strange. You might think Christians know what they think about abortion, but the reality is we don't. I'm going to be showing you statistics just released. There's been research taking place in the UK just over the last few months showing attitudes towards abortion and experience of abortion within the UK church. And one of the most striking things these data reveal to us is that Christians do not know what to think about this issue. We're not being taught, and we're not thinking it through. So there's a real need for Christians to get our thinking straight. And actually what this is going to do for us is it's going to unveil deeper issues, broader issues than just abortion and our response to abortion. What we're going to find is that actually our response to abortion is a barometer. It's a litmus test for how we're responding across the board and what our authority is, who we're really listening to. Because in that silence, that vacuum left in the church where we're not talking about abortion, what's happening? Other voices are coming in and directing our thoughts and our attitudes. And so Christians are being discipled in this issue by the world. And so it's time that we Christians open up the scriptures and looked into how to think through this issue biblically. And that's why we've said in the kind of caption, the sort of subtitle there, that it's about rethinking life in the light of Scripture, because we need to be explicit about this. If we want to understand life, we've got to consult life's creator. And so unashamedly, we're going to be looking at things through the lens of Scripture. Now, what's the plan? What's this podcast going to sound like? It's not going to be one long Bible study as such. We're not going to be just looking at Scripture head on and that's the end of it, but rather we're going to be using Scripture as a lens through which to consider abortion and various claims that are made about abortion and different opinions about abortion. We're going to subject those to the light of Scripture, and we're going to find what God really thinks about this issue. And that needs to be our starting point. And what we're going to find as we do that is that not only is this issue examined before us, but our own hearts, our own thinking is going to be examined, and our attitudes in the light of God's word. And we're going to find that where we've been on this issue or where we've not been on this issue is quite revealing, because we've allowed ourselves to go with the flow of culture and we've gone the way of the nation, and we need to come back. So the plan is we're going to be looking at this issue, and we're going to go through 3 distinct phases, in this podcast. We're going to, first of all, look at we're going to landscape. We're going to look at the issue broadly. We're going to look at the history of abortion, how it came into this nation in particular. We're going to look at the church's part to play in that, crucially. And we're going to look at what might sound almost too basic, but actually we need to, because people don't know the basics. We're going to look at what abortion actually is. We're going to look at the stats. We're going to understand it spiritually. How do we define and how do we appreciate what abortion really is spiritually, and what are its ramifications when a nation embraces this practice? So that's the first phase, landscaping, a kind of general analysis. Then second stage, uprooting. We're going to look at why it is that even though all of this is really plain to see from Scripture, the church is nowhere on this issue. What's going on there? We're going to uproot. We're going to find those things that are under the surface, that are holding us back, that are keeping us locked and paralyzed, such that we're not responding in line with the heart of God. So we're going to do this uprooting. And then the third phase is going to be building or planting. We're going to look at how we are called to respond as God's people. And we're going to look at getting equipped and trained up to do that effectively. We're going to be interviewing all sorts of people involved in active pro-life work, effective pro-life work, and we're going to be equipped to do these works ourselves. So this is really going to be a journey of transformation. It's not just going to be information, it's going to be transformation. And we're going to learn how to carry out that mandate to be voices for the voiceless. And so my prayer is that this podcast isn't just going to be something to tickle your ears. It's not just something that is going to be interesting or gripping, but actually this is going to be a journey of transformation. It's going to be a catalyst for real change that we so desperately need in the church today. In 50 years' time, I can well imagine the BBC, for example, broadcasting solemn remembrance services for the great genocide being perpetrated today. Just as we do already have with regard to the Holocaust, with regard to the slave trade, we look back in horror at what we all accepted for so long. I believe that's how we're going to see this baby genocide one day. And as they look back and they broadcast these programs, they'll identify different groups of people. There'll be the victims, of course, the helpless babies. There'll be the perpetrators, those who really promoted this genocide and carried it out. But then there'll be this huge group, probably the biggest, of the silent bystanders. The people who were neither the victims nor the perpetrators, but just silently stood by. Maybe because of ignorance, maybe they weren't aware. Maybe they were just paralyzed by fear. Or maybe they wanted to help but didn't know how to. And most of us fall into that category. We're the silent bystanders. Now, this podcast represents an opportunity to move from that camp into the final group of people that will be identified in hindsight, and that'll be the defenders. The people who no longer stood by silently, be that because of ignorance, be that because of fear, be that because of just not knowing what to do or how. Well, this podcast is an opportunity to move into that final camp of defender, And so if you journey with us on this podcast, you're going to find out how to do that effectively. But before we can even get to that, we've got work to do. We need to understand this issue rightly before we can respond effectively. It's unlikely, I think, that anyone listening into this already hears regular teaching on abortion and has thought all this through. If you're listening and that is you, fantastic. But can I encourage you to be not a reservoir, but a river? I heard a speaker reference this once, and I thought it was a helpful image. If this stuff is familiar to you, and as I say, I think it's unlikely that many will have really given that much attention or had the opportunity to look into this in any great depth. But if that is you, see yourself as a river, not as a reservoir. See who you can pass this on to, because we desperately need this truth to get out to the rest of the people of God, the church in the UK, and then of course beyond to the nation. So I'm not just talking about sharing the links to these podcasts, of course that would be a great way to share, but how can you bring what you're learning here into conversation? How can you help others to find their voice and be a voice for the voiceless? So I'm inviting you to join me on this journey of transformation to learn how to be voices for the voiceless, because it's high time we made time to think seriously about abortion.